Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Doesn't look like that chat box is working, does it? I wonder what happened. Could there have been some kind of change? I wonder. Well, we're stuck with it now. It's probably in the frozen state. I don't know what the hell it says. Let me try switching a scene here. Just a sec. Boom. Let me do this. You know what? I think it's probably... Hopefully it'll be okay. I guess we'll find out in just a minute. There's where Don sits. Where Don isn't here. Sorry, I get a little misty. I don't try to bring that up when I'm sitting here alone just because it's hard to bear. But welcome, everybody. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and this is the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories From Beyond. Everything looks like we're underway. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Monday is now behind you, so perhaps... things will start looking up. I don't know how you guys feel about Mondays, but I know that Mondays can be a real bum rush for a lot of people. So, but it's behind you. So I hope everything's going good and you guys are ready. And the phone lines, of course, are always open during the portal. You can call in if you want. If you have something paranormal to talk about or you'd like to mention, then please do. 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. 0500. If you're during the show, if you like, oh man, I should call in, but I don't remember the number is always right here, right up there. So you see that right under the words Paranormal Portal. Boom. So they're always up there on the screen for you people on YouTube, so you can call in whenever you feel the hankering to do so. So I guess we're all underway. It doesn't look like any mods come in at all. Do I have any mods? I don't have any mods tonight, it doesn't look like. So I hope you guys are on your best behavior because, you know, I can whip out the ugly stick if I have to, but I don't want to. I don't want to have to go there. So just be on your best behavior, if you would, please. I don't know if somebody will be coming along or not, but I guess I hope you all are ready because it's time for bed. I guess we got a mod. Mr. Longbeard himself is in here. Welcome, Don. Thanks for being here. I showed your seat just a minute ago. I wish you were here. But anyway, guys, hope you guys are good. I guess the portal's now underway. I hope I got a good show lined up for you. I'm certainly going to try. Scowling Wolf gives us an angel and a smiley face. And then what the hell is that little yellow thing in the middle? Oh, it's a little chick. That's funny. That's funny. But great. Thank you guys for all coming in. And Scowling Wolf, it's nice to meet you. I don't recognize the name, but it's always wonderful to see new faces come into the show. So welcome, and I hope you enjoy yourself and come back and spread the word to the people that you like if you are enjoying the show. But anyway, great show tonight. Hopefully, I guess we'll find out. But I always plan it to be a great show. It usually turns out pretty good, though. I got to admit, our track record on the show is really good. Had a really productive day today. I fixed the laptop. Don and I recorded a podcast, and I got a lot of things done. So I'm feeling kind of good about that. I try to be productive every day, and usually I'm always slammed from the moment I wake up till I go to sleep. But today felt like I really got some things taken care of. Some things I had to do, some things I wanted to do. I would have loved to have had more time to dedicate to some music and stuff. But Five Hazel, hello, good to see you. Hello to you. I guess I should see who's here. Got a lot of people piling in, so let's look at the list. I got Five Hazel here, Beth Fierce is here, Cameron is here, Cha Cha is here, Cha 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 Cha. Dead Spider's here, Elaine Clifford is here, John G is here. How you doing, John? I don't recognize that name, but welcome to the show. Kai Victoria, that one I think Kai, you've been in here before. But again, I'm sorry if I forget you guys. It's not intentional. It's just my personal dyslexia is names. So, I'm Guy Victoria just left. They're like, I'm out of here. Lisa Heilman's here. Hi, Lisa. Linda is here. Lewis is here. MCAT is here. Moga Yon Monster is here. Nellie is here. Renee is here. Robert Edgington is here. And Scowling Wolf. And then Don is here. Okay, so there you go. I guess it's a full boat, ladies and gentlemen, so I hope you guys are all ready. Eddie H. I just saw Eddie H. come in. I think you just came in, Eddie. Welcome to the show. But I hope you guys are going to enjoy yourself. Oh, you're still here. That's weird that your name just dropped off. It just like disappeared in front of my eyes, so I thought maybe you logged off, but I'm glad you're still here. So, but that's all I got for the preliminaries. I guess I should just start reading stuff, huh? So I was watching a video just a minute ago, trying to understand some of the political messes that are going on. It's just a nightmare. I don't know what the hell's going on in this world anymore. It's crazy. But I don't generally try to get involved in politics anyway. One, because I'm not willing to dedicate enough time to really understand the nuances of what's going on. And B, I don't believe anybody anymore. That's just all twists and spins, and it's all just designed to keep people off their balance, I think. So, I don't know. That's my 2 cents on that. But the first story I got lined up for you guys tonight comes from North Carolina. That's Deb's grounds there, North Carolina. Speaking of Deb, by the way, Deb's going to be on this Friday night on the Paranormal Portal doing free psychic readings to callers of the show. So if you are interested in taking part of that, or either watching or taking part of the show, that'll be 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Friday night, and she will give free readings. She does come on about once a month, and we always have a great time. Just get a lot of amazing participation from people. I've never seen our calling board so full as when Deb's on. So it's a great opportunity. And ladies and gentlemen, she also does private readings. If you're interested in having Deb do a private reading for you, you can certainly reach out and get in touch with her. She has a group on Facebook called Purple Mystic Readings by Deb, or you can reach out via email to purplemysticreader@gmail.com. But she will be on the show Friday doing readings, so it should be pretty exciting. I might have something lined up for Saturday. I'm not quite sure yet, but I will keep you posted as those developments take shape. But remember Friday, put that on your calendar. Well, put 7 o'clock Pacific time every night on your calendar, because 7 days a week, 7 p.m. Pacific time, I'm here doing a show. So it's a labor of love. So let's get to this North Carolina story, and it says, the very first place I lived in a neighborhood in Fayetteville, North Carolina, was in a house dating back to the 1920s, which my first husband and I purchased while I was pregnant with my younger son. Now, like most neighborhoods, this one had its share of good and bad times. Just now it's on the upswing, but when we moved there, it was kind of rough. My other half wanted the house because A, it had 2 stories, and B, it had a fireplace. One thing about the street this house is on that may or may not mean anything is that directly across from our house was a place that had once been occupied by one Helen Stoeckley, who was a figure in the infamous Jeffrey MacDonald murder case. The book and the film Fatal Vision were based on this true crime. Since poor Miss Stoickley was a serious abuser of drugs, you can guess the reason why it was in the 60s dubbed Haight Ashbury East by the locals. I protested, saying that the neighborhood was not the best, and my other half said that he'd grown up in a bad neighborhood and he turned out all right. And I told him that most people usually want better for their children than what they had, and that said, we made the purchase and moved in. This proved fatal to my marriage and close to being so for me personally. Almost immediately after we moved in, I was standing at the kitchen sink, all my third trimester glory, one afternoon, and saw what I thought was my husband in the dining room. Of course, it wasn't. He was on Fort Bragg at the time, and there was something else which was to occur again and again, the seeing things that weren't there kind of thing, the shadows from the corner of the eye, etc. The years I lived there were not the best. They were a few bright spots, such as the birth of my younger son, but within 2 years of moving in, my husband decided that the marriage and the fatherhood thing just wasn't for him. Oh, that's horrible. And he left me with a 16-month-old toddler and a 7-year-old with autism and a house that needed massive repairs in a neighborhood about as peaceful and serene as your average demilitarized zone. Oh, that poor woman. Wow. My older son was always something of an empath. Maybe it's partially due to his condition. But for a long time, well over a year, every night, without fail, he would go to bed willingly enough and then cry for an hour or so. He was never able to tell me why. At this stage, his speech was really rather limited, and I can only describe the nature of the weeping as being as if he were grieving over the state of the world in general. One time it occurred during the day, and all I could get out of him were the words, "I feel very sad, dear." One of his first lucid sentences, I might add. As my younger son grew older, he had reoccurring dreams in which he would be sitting cross-legged in our kitchen, looking up at a woman in a long dress whose face he couldn't see. Excuse me. While living there, we survived a fire, several break-ins, mostly when we were out, but the final two resulted in being raped by during the next to the last one, and almost a year to the day later being nearly murdered. It was almost as if the house was cursed or a bad luck token or just plain didn't like us. It was then that I took the hint and we got out of there. While in the hospital recuperating from the wounds that had come close to killing me, a dear friend came to see me, and I remember saying, I was still kind of sedated, to him, "You know, Charles, I really think I ought to move out of there." His reply was, "My dear, if you weren't talking this way, I'd think I'd have to go burn it down." Funny, but even though life didn't immediately get better after I did that, it certainly led me to better things, including the man to whom I've been happily married for over 12 years. Maybe the song is right. You've got to go through hell before you get to heaven. Wow. So I don't know if that was as much paranormal as it was just a really creepy place to be. But still, that's horrible, horrible experiences that she had to deal with. That's too bad. It's not right sometimes. Okay, so this one is from Maryland. Let's see what's going on in Maryland. A long time ago, when I was 7, I went to Clara Barton's house near D.C. I was with my mom, my brother, my godmother, and her boyfriend. When we got to the house, we knocked on the door, and a lady came and opened the door. Of course, since I was only 7, I could see under the lady's elbow, and while the lady was still holding the door and talking to adults, I could see inside the house. I saw another lady leaning on the wall, and I think she was looking at me or at all of us. She had in some kind of dark greenish maybe clothing, and I think her hair was black or something of that kind of color. I only got to see her for a second because the lady at the door moved her elbow, and when she moved it back to where I could see into the house, there was no lady there anymore. How could she be there one second and be gone the next, I thought to myself. So I told my mom what I saw, and she told me to tell our tour guide, who was the lady at the door, and when the tour was over. When the tour was over, I did tell the tour guide what I saw, but the tour guide said there wasn't any other woman there. I told the guide that the other woman ran very fast. Then the guide's face changed from okay to scared. She said she'll be right back. After a little while, the guide did come back with another woman, and she asked me if this was the woman I saw, and right off I said no. The woman the guide brought said that she was in the basement the whole time, and she didn't even know that there were people here. Was the woman telling the truth? If so, was it Clara Barton? There is a little proof to think it might be Clara. Clara was in the army helping out with the wounded, and the lady I saw was in the front of the space. The guide said Clara kept bandages. Could it have been my guardian angel, or maybe it may not have been even anything? If you can help me understand or tell me what it is, I'd be grateful. Well, nobody can tell you what it is. That's the thing with these kind of stories. It's nobody can just look in and go, yes, this is what you saw, or no, this isn't what you saw. It's your experience. I guess a psychic could probably tell you if you maybe had a bump in with a spirit or not. But other than that, nobody can just read your stories and go, yes, this is real, or no, this isn't. Nobody can give you that. That's a place you got to get to all by yourself. So this is Illinois is the next one, ladies and gentlemen. It says, it was at just the age of 14, I've seen so many unexplainable things. I'll be writing down all of my experiences. How long is this story? No, it's very short. My first that I can remember was when I was about 5. I was sleeping with my parents in their bed. And when I woke, I looked up to see a man in this black hooded cape who had red eyes. And he looked at me in just hatred. Not long after this, I was in the bathroom taking a bath. I looked across the hall, and there he was again, just staring at me, sitting on my parents' bed. A couple of years passed, and I had a new friend, and I was sleeping at her house for the night. She was my neighbor, and we decided to look out her brother's window, and when we did, we saw this thing. It was the figure of a man, and he was neon green, and then he pulled this string and disappeared into thin air. Whatever it wasn't human. That sounds pretty bizarre, cartoonish, really. A couple of years passed, and I moved from that house to a house in the country. And one night my sister got into this horrible car accident, which killed her boyfriend, and we started seeing him. My sister woke up with him just staring at her. My mom saw him too, as did I. I didn't know what he wanted, but one day he called my name, and I was so horrified. This happened a long time ago, and I've been okay for about 5 years now, except at night I do hear people calling my name. If you can relate or help, that would be wonderful. Thanks for reading, and I hope you enjoyed it. Sounds to me like this person probably has some kind of untapped abilities, and they're I don't know, the whole neon green, then hitting a switch or pulling a chain or something and disappearing. That sounds really like a caricature of an experience, and I don't know what to think of those kind of things, because could spirits be entertaining like that? Maybe. I mean, they probably could. They can. I believe they can probably be perceived however they want to be, but very strange. I got a cat here in my nose. It's driving me crazy. Somebody's been rubbing against the microphone again. All right, let's go to California. I got no calls, and everything looks good. Just Don here, I guess. Yeah, looks like Don's the only mod in the room. So, I don't see Duke or Julia, so, okay. California. I'm California dreaming. I wanted to go to the summertime again. I want the summertime to come back. About 2 weeks before the end of the school year, my class went on a spiritual retreat. It was one of the last things that we would do as a whole class, and the retreat took place in an old house built in the 1930s. The place had belonged to a wealthy family, but after about 30 years, they sold it to some nuns so they could use it as a convent, and the nuns founded a graveyard right next to the house some years after they had bought the property, and there have been many different claims that the house is haunted, but I didn't believe them. when I first got to the house. The house was big and homey, and I didn't feel like there was anything else in the house that was paranormal. In the first part of the retreat, we meditated and trying to leave all our worries and bad feelings behind us. And as we meditated, I heard some interesting sounds upstairs, but I just passed them off as just natural noises. After the meditation, we broke off into groups to discuss a few topics, and every group went into a different room, and there were about 7 groups to have some privacy, and my group took the only room downstairs, and the room had no windows in it, so the air was still very stiff and stuffy. After about 10 minutes in the room, all of us started to feel a bit uncomfortable and really chilly. We looked at each other oddly and asked if we were feeling the same way. Then a huge breeze just blasted through the room, making our papers fly everywhere. The breeze seemed to have come from the closet, so I opened it up and searched for a vent or something that could have caused it, but there was nothing but a few jackets and a hat. We frowned and went on with our discussion. During the lunch break, my group told everyone what had happened and thinking there was a logical explanation. As we were telling our story, someone from another group told us that they had had an odd experience too. As our room had been, there had been no windows and absolutely no breeze when the door was shut, and they had been talking with each other, and suddenly the door slammed open. Oh, that's creepy. The room had then become very cold. So my friend Kyle and I decided that we wanted to go upstairs and do a little investigation. We went into a room and started asking, is there anyone here with us that would like to show themselves? And things of that sort, and all the time laughing and taking it as a joke. Then Kyle said, please slam the door if you don't like us being in here. Nothing happened, so we left the room, and Kyle went down in the direction of the bathroom, and I entered the room at the end of the hall, the one that the door had opened itself. I walked around the room and started humming softly, and all of a sudden, there was a huge gust of wind, and the door slammed shut. I screamed, absolutely startled, and I knew that it hadn't been Kyle, for he had been down at the other end of the hall. I ran towards the door and yanked it open, and Kyle was staring at me wide-eyed. Without saying a word, we ran downstairs and out the front door into the lunch area. At the end of the retreat, we were getting into cars to return to school, and I looked at the window in the living room, and the curtain moved. I caught a glimpse of a little girl's face, and then she vanished. I don't know if what I experienced there was actually paranormal, but it was definitely interesting, and I hope to go back someday and try to find the answers to all of my questions. Huh. That's very weird. Sounds legit, though, honestly. I don't think anything was stated in there that hasn't happened a gajillion other times in a million other stories. I don't know if gajillion's a real word, but it means a lot. I'm just making up language as I go. Gajillion. All right, this is New Jersey. Let me just get past the first fluffy stuff. The only weird thing that happens to me is no more night attacks, but voices. I hear voices and noises. I have yet to hear the voices, but my girlfriend has. Oh, okay. I must have misread that. I told her nothing of the night attacks because I didn't want her to freak out, but about staying over. But on the nights that she does, she's complained about hearing a voice talking to someone like they're on the phone, coming from the old bedroom, which is almost directly above my new one. She woke me up to check it out a couple of times, but I never really fully check it because I don't want to go in that room anymore. She's not the only one, though. I've had friends stay over, and usually on clubbing nights, and they were the first to complain. One morning, I even had someone get up and say, "Who in the hell is talking on the phone all night?" I've woken up to footsteps upstairs, and my dog now wakes up every once in a while because he hears them too. I feel if I leave the room locked and keep out of it, I'll be fine. I've gotten a couple of people who were interested in staying in the room for a night just to see if they could record any ghosts, but I refused. I don't want to make it worse, and I don't want anyone to get hurt. Things are fine the way they are. That's a good point. A A lot of people do want to investigate, and if it's not done in a real respectful way, or if it's not done in a very gentle way, it can really, really make paranormal activity just really peak up, and it'll get a lot more intense for a while after an investigation. And many times, not every time, but if the spirits don't like being investigated, they're going to make you pay, and they'll be extraordinarily active following an investigation. And, especially if you get people in there that like to do provoking, like, I don't think you can lift this. I don't think you can slam that door. You're just not strong enough. And that, I think, really pisses them off. And you got to think about it this way. These were probably, in most cases, people at one point. So the only difference is that they're not in a body anymore. They're still people. And imagine somebody coming into your house demanding that you, open and close a door and try to move something, or, whatever. It would be really disrespectful. So I think, investigating has to be done very, very tastefully and very gently. Because I don't think most of the times the spirits mind curiosity, but they don't like to be, made into a circus act. I think that's probably kind of degrading. Just my thoughts on that, but they are mine. All right, let's go to Florida is next, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what's going on in Florida. I bet you it's warm in Florida. Sorry. I keep thinking of my shorts and how much I miss them already. When I was 10 years old, my family moved back to the house on the cattle ranch near Bushnell, Florida. A lot had happened to my family in the 60s. My dad was diagnosed with a spinal cord disease that took his ability to provide for his family. We lost a house, and we were buying after we'd lived at the ranch house the first time. The owners of the ranch liked my dad and wanted to help however they could. Although Dad couldn't walk or stand very well, he could still work on small engines and do jobs that didn't involve having to be on your feet. But even with this, we were very poor, and my parents decided to move back to their original community in northwestern Alabama, just to be close to family and old friends and such. And my dad was receiving a settlement for his disability that enabled us to move and put a down payment on a new house. I remember the night before, the day where we were scheduled to leave the ranch for the last time, and my little brother and I were sleeping in the same bed. The curtains had been removed from the window of our room, so only the beds and a few pieces of furniture remained. Everything else had been packed into the moving truck for our trip to Alabama. I was sleeping fitfully, being both excited about the trip and actually saddened by leaving the only community I had ever known as home. Finally giving up sleep, I rolled onto my side to stare out the window at the moonlit pasture, and staring out the window at night had been something I did quite a bit in my young life. I was too excited about life to let much of it pass me by and even the stillness of the night, I found things to wonder about and wonders to see. The window was open, and a screen protected us from the bugs so prevalent in Florida. I could hear a mosquito buzzing around the screen and the ever-present chirp of tree frogs. A cool breeze blew in on the night air, still full of warmth from the summer. And I was just beginning to get sleepy when I heard scratching on the screen, like someone running their fingernail over the screen. I looked out the window, expecting maybe to see my uncle, who was always playing pranks on us. The scratching continued, so I got up to look more closely. I could see the ground underneath the window, and I pushed my forehead against the screen, and there was no one there. I returned to bed thinking maybe a moth had brushed against the screen or something, but as soon as I pulled the cover over my shoulder and settled onto my pillow, the scratching started again. This time it was louder, and the scratches were longer, like someone running their fingernails the entire length of the screen. The noise woke my brother up. "What's that?" he whispered. "I don't know." As soon as I got the words out, it sounded as if someone was taking the screen off the window, lifting and scooting the wooden screen frame away from the window casing. I rolled away from my brother, my eyes fixed on the moonlit window. The screen was still there, just like it had always been. cold filled the room. My brother hugged me tight from behind and whimpered a little. His fear infected me, and I slid back into him, distancing myself from the window. We heard distinctly the sound of someone coming through the window, climbing onto the casing, and then heavy boots landing on the floor. The sound reminded me of when my daddy used to take his work boots off and drop them on the floor with a sigh of relief. The thought of my protective daddy made me want to scream for help, but when I opened my mouth, no sound came out. I soon realized my brother was screaming as silently as I was. We heard the invisible intruder walk around the foot of the bed, and then felt the bed jar as if someone had run into it in the dark. The bed began to slowly be pulled out away from the wall at the foot of the bed frame, and I covered my head with the blanket and turned to my brother in a fierce hug. He was shaking as if he was being chilled to the bone. My heart felt like it would pound out of my chest. The invisible being sounded as if it were wedging itself between the bed and the wall, lying down in that small space, a few more bumps, as if it was getting comfortable, and then stillness. My brother and I finally found sleep as we held each other until the thin light of dawn came in through the window. My mama was up preparing the family's last breakfast in Florida, juice and oatmeal. My brother and I seemed to wake up at the same time, and we both peered cautiously into the space between the bed and the wall, and there was nothing. There, although the bed had been moved away from the wall, at the foot of the bed, several inches. We got up and dressed in silence, both tired from a restless night. Before we went into the kitchen, my brother touched my arm and looked at me with plaintive eyes. "It's still here. Can't you feel it watching?" I nodded my head and thought for a second before I spoke. "Maybe we'll leave it here when we move. Think so?" A glimmer of hope came into his eyes, and he nodded. We tried to tell Mom and Dad, but they were just too wrapped up in the moving to pay any attention to us. We made it to Alabama without much of a fuss and stayed with my grandmother for a couple of weeks before my Mom and Dad found a house that would suit us. Mom and Dad, along with a bevy of uncles and aunts, moved what possessions we'd brought with us into our new house and then called the utility company to connect the electricity and whatnot. Mom and Dad bought a new living room furniture set, a dining room table and chairs, stove and refrigerator, but we'd brought our beds with us. I believe the invisible intruder who visited my brother and I stowed away in our bed, and we brought this ghost with us from Florida because of the happenings in our new home before we even moved into it properly. Why this ghost intruder attached itself to us, I don't know. I can only guess. But I'll save those stories for another time. Ooh. That's creepy. Huh. That's not the kind of house guest you want to bring with you. There is another one by that same author, the same person that submitted that. I guess we could. When was this? So 702. What was this? Well, 703. I must have already covered it. Huh. Yeah, it's called Orange Eyes. So I guess that's one we've probably read before on the show. The first part of that story. But yeah, that's kind of spooky. Now, can spirits move with you? Yeah, if they're attached to an object, they can. I know there used to be a show on television, and maybe it's still on repeats every once in a while, but it was called The Haunted Collector with John Zaffis. And essentially the premise of the show was to go help people dealing with pretty severe hauntings. And if you're not clear or you don't know who John Zaffis is, he's an investigator that's been out in the field forever. He's really quite accomplished, but he is actually the nephew of Ed and Lorraine Warren. So he's probably been well versed in the paranormal since childhood, really. But he had that show, and the premise of the show was to conduct investigations. But all their investigations always centered on finding an object, because it was their belief or his belief, and I don't know if this is what he believes exclusively, but their belief was that something would have been brought into the home that had started the hauntings. And I think that there's truth to that. There's truth to those possibilities that you can bring items in, like if you like going garage sailing or yard sailing or thrift sailing or antique shopping, all these kind of things where people are selling pre-owned items, you have to be a little bit cautious of the fact that they may have an attachment. They may have an energy that is connected to them in some way. So if you ever just suddenly notice something going on in your house, I do believe there are just one-off hauntings. Like I believe there are transient spirits, and they may just kind of wander through one day, raise hell, and then leave. But if you notice something just starting oddly and then continuing, like it's not just a one-off transient kind of thing, then start thinking about if you've introduced anything to your home that was owned by somebody else prior. It could be a hairbrush. It could be an antique plate or something. I mean, it can be any object. It just has to have some kind of tie or connection to somebody else. Old dolls, I think, are the worst. I think those are, the original purpose for dolls was really to house spirits. And somehow in the course of our history, they become children's playthings. And, that's, take it or leave it. But, it's one of the reasons why, like, the Amish don't put faces on their dolls. It's considered to be evil if you put a face on it. So, their belief is that since there's no face, the spirit can't not possess the object. I don't know that that's true, though. I don't think that matters a lot, but that's their belief. So if you notice that something you brought in suddenly started some new activity that you don't recognize, or it's not something you've experienced before, try taking the object out, putting it in a garage or some other space separate from the house, and see if the activity dies down again. If you notice that it does, then before you reintroduce it into your house, you have to cleanse it. I would just default to cleanse things anyway before you bring them into your house. I don't probably practice what I preach as much as I should, but I cleanse my house all the time anyway, just because I do a show like this, and I believe that it has caused things to happen here. But it's just, I think, a good rule of thumb to do some cleansing, say prayers over it, whatever your belief system is. If you're Christian, say prayers, holy water, whatever, to ask the spirit be pushed out, or any spirits that might be lingering or not allowed to enter your home. Have a dialogue with them, get out, you're not allowed to be here, whatever. But just be careful about that kind of stuff, because spiritual attachments to objects is, I believe, a very valid phenomenon. You need to be at least aware of it if you believe in hauntings. So it can be one cause. I don't know. I think it's good to be prepared. Let's see. This is Indiana. How are we doing for time? Doesn't feel like it's gone. Feels like we've been doing it for about 10 minutes, but I see we've been at it for about 30 some minutes already, but we got lots of time left. So if anybody wants to call in and be a part of the show, please feel free. Again, 720-923-0500. If you don't want to call in, but you'd like to share something that happened to you, please feel free to email the show as well. I'm happy to read emails. You can email the show at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Again, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. So I think you're right, Brent. Oh, thank you, Five Hazel. I appreciate that. He's womanizing already. OCG. What am I missing? So let's get started here. I don't know what's going on in our chat room's always a hoot. You guys are the best. All right, so Indiana is next. This one's a pretty long story. Wow. Want to hear it? Here you go. Don't ask. Okay, I'll leave it alone. I don't want to know, apparently. All right. One day at school, a couple of... No, that was me. I was knocking on the desk. It's okay. I'm dog sitting. Come here. It's okay. It's just me. You can relax. Take it easy there, tough girl. She's a good dog. She's I don't know, like a pit bull lab mix or something like that. She's a real sweetheart. Just a real baby. I knocked on the desk and she thought someone was here. You were protecting me, though, weren't you? Good job. Good job. Sorry about that. All right. So one day at school, a couple of years ago, my friend and I decided that we wanted to stay after school and play a game of basketball in the gymnasium. We knew it would become boring really quick with only 2 people, so we invited several other guys to join us. And they were all going out to eat after school, but they said that they would come back to the gym after. Well, school ended at 3, and my friend and my girlfriend and I went to the gym and just to shoot around and simply hang out until the guys showed up. And as it turned out, the guys never even arrived. Although we were angry, we still had a fairly enjoyable time amongst the 3 of us. At about 5, we decided to head home, and my friend had already gone as my girlfriend and I were walking down the steps of the school towards my car. Everything seemed to be normal at the time as we were laughing and joking around with each other. And we both entered my car, and I asked her if she wanted to go to her house and my house or just go out and do something, and she requested to go to her house. But from that point on, I wasn't exactly there anymore. Now, some of this is what she told me happened, and partially what I remember. After entering my car, I started to drive out of the school parking lot down the hill and into the small town in which our school is located. The town she lived in is roughly 15 miles from where the school is located. I don't recall anything until we were about halfway to the destination. My girlfriend said that she was talking to me and asking me questions, but I wasn't responding. She also said that I didn't seem to be breathing and that I was clenching the steering wheel really tightly. Another thing that I apparently did was viciously pound the dashboard with my hand because there was a largely damaged area on it afterwards, and my hand was bruised on the side. At this point, I can vaguely remember someone yelling my name, but it seemed to be a very distant and very far away. This went on until we reached the town in between her town and the school's location. The town we were in now had an elementary school that sits on top of a hill to the town church, and I then drove my car into the playground area of the school, made a large circular turn, and parked the car facing the exit of the playground. In this instant, I finally started to come to, and as the faint screams and cries became louder and louder, I woke from my haze to hear my girlfriend screaming my name. And I, who did not have the slightest notion of what had happened, answered, "What?" Now she started to scream even louder at me because I believed that she thought I was just messing with her the whole time, but in fact, I was totally clueless to what had occurred. Anyway, I began asking her questions about what happened and why she was so flustered. She was so shook up and crying, and she told me all these horrifying things. Cue the weird voices in my head, and at least I thought that they were in my head. And as she was still explaining, I looked out my windshield to see the giant walnut tree that stands in front of the playground. Only on this day, a black hooded figure stood on top of the highest branch. It had on a long black cloak with a hood, and it was posing exactly the way that Jesus is portrayed on the cross, with his head limp to the side, looking towards the ground. The voices started to get louder in my head, several voices all talking simultaneously at the same time, none of which were in English. The voices were becoming unbearable as I stared in disbelief at the black hooded figure in the tree. Still staring, I leaned over to my girlfriend and pointed at the figure and asked, "Do you see that?" Of course she didn't, and by this point probably thought I was crazy. Suddenly all the voices stopped. The hooded figure raised its head, revealing glowing red eyes staring right at me. In shock and completely terrified, I stared on. Then only one voice did I hear in my head, and it came from the figure. 6 words, though not in English, were spoken by the figure, followed by an eerie silence. And then, though the figure had no visible mouth, it began laughing a horrible, wretched laugh. At that moment, I broke free of the trance and turned the car on. I slammed the gears into drive and sped off as fast as I could towards my girlfriend's house. That was the last time I have ever encountered something unworldly. To this day, my girlfriend and I do not speak of this, and haven't spoken of it since that day. Hopefully you guys can make some sense of this, because I think about it almost every day and I still can't come up with anything concrete about what had happened. My theory is that in my car driving, I had been possessed, and the demon didn't show itself until we reached the elementary school. If anyone has any comments, please feel free. I don't know. That's a crazy one. That's a bizarre one for sure. Maybe it wanted to just get to that school. I don't know. It's weird that that's where it would choose to, I don't know, for lack of a better term, disembark. But, oops, I didn't want to do that. Let me do this. Sorry. Oh, good grief. What happened? I did something stupid. I did something dumb. No, there it is. There it is. Okay. And there. All right, just opening up a couple more because we still got time, I think. Let's see how much time went by for that story. Yeah, we got time for, I don't know how long this one is. And we got time for both of these, I think. So let me see this one. Yeah, we got time for both of these. So the next one's coming from New York. Hold on a sec. Had to cough. In the year 2000, my son, who is an adult, had back surgery at Lockport Memorial Hospital in Lockport, New York. I was a smoker at the time, so at the time of his surgery, I waited in the main lobby so that I could step outside for a smoke when I needed. After having been in the lobby for about an hour, I had my cigarette, and then when I returned, I decided to go to the surgical floor to check on my son's progress. I headed to the elevators, an elderly hospital volunteer. These are retirees that help with administrative and patient services, and wear at the time was, I believe, gray sport coat with the hospital insignia, walking about 20 yards ahead of me, and also going into the elevators. As we approached the elevators, the volunteer stepped into the open elevator on the right, turned and pushed her floor button, and as I attempted to hurry to catch the elevator, remember I was about 20 yards behind, the door slid shut. I pushed the elevator call button expecting to wait for the next available elevator, and the door that had just shut not 15 seconds earlier opened. I began to apologize to the volunteer for delaying the elevator when I realized that the elevator was empty. It was impossible for the volunteer to have gone anywhere, as between the time the door sliding shut and my pushing the call button was only 15 seconds. Needless to say, I was stunned. I stepped back out of the elevator to collect my thoughts and try to make sense of what just happened. The woman volunteer appeared to be about 70 years old, was about 5 foot 2 inches tall, and white hair that was short and well done hairdo, and she wore gold trimmed glasses and had one of those long strap holders attached that would allow you to take the glasses off, and they'd hang around your neck. The holder was made out of a string of pearls, and I should also have mentioned that the volunteer appeared to be solid. After checking on my son, I went to the volunteer's office. I explained to the gentleman there what had happened and gave him the description of the woman. The man became pale. He told me that the woman's name was Mary Ann, and that he knew it was her from not only the general description, but the pearl glass holder that she was wearing. He told me that I am the second person to have told him that she had been seen since she passed away. He stated that the first person to mention seeing her knew her personally, and he said that he thought the first person was mistaken, but not anymore. Wow. Some people just love their job. They love it so much they continue to do it even after they pass. All right, so this one's from Maine. And this, I guess, will be probably the last one we're going to read tonight. Maybe one more. But at least this one for sure. So we'll see how long it takes me to get through it. I've had many experiences with ghosts over the years, and this story is about a house I rented with a childhood friend, and I'll call him Fred. The house is an older home styled like a shipbuilder's house, and the kitchen was like a ship's galley. And the first week we lived there, we set up our mattresses in the living room so we could paint the bedrooms, and at night we would stay up watching movies until the wee hours of the morning where we would hear dishes rattling in the kitchen, even though nobody was in there. Well, this kind of freaked us out when we realized it only happened at 1:15 a.m. One night I was just standing in front of the sink. It had a window over it, facing Fred, and he freaked out and said, "Did you just see that?" There's a porch on the other side of the kitchen with windows as well, and he saw the reflection of someone walking across the porch. Well, I was looking right towards it, and I didn't see a thing, but also the porch was filled with trash from the former tenant, so no one could have been out there. We'd come home from work and the cellar light would be on for no reason, and then when you went down to turn it off, you would get that cold, hair-raising feeling that sometimes something bad was down there. If you were home alone, you would also feel like someone was watching you. One night, Fred and his girlfriend were in their room, and I was in mine, and I could hear them talking like there was an old vent shaft that went down into the basement for heat between the rooms. We kept the vents shut as it was summer, but you could still hear muffled sounds, and Fred and his girlfriend all of a sudden burst into my room, scared silly, asking me if I had just heard that scream. I said, "Come on, guys, I heard you talking, but I didn't hear any scream." Fred assured me he had heard it, and I could tell by the look on his face that he was telling me the truth. We'd been friends since grade school, and I can tell when he's trying to fib me. The next day was the last day in the house for me. I'd gotten up to go to work and was standing in the kitchen waiting for the coffee. I was a little upset with Fred because he had done the dishes but left the pots and pans stacking up in the stove. All of a sudden I got a really cold, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw something flying in the air. And then bang, I looked at the stove, and the butcher knife had come out of the knife block and flown across the room and landed on the stove with its blade up. I stayed at a friend's apartment until I could find a new place, and only went back to get my things when I had people with me. That's crazy. That's pretty freaky kind of stuff, right? Where are we at? That's 52. I guess that's a good place to call it for the night, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here, being a part of the show. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Paranormal Portal. I certainly enjoy bringing it to you, but make sure to check out the podcasts if you haven't already, and to subscribe if whatever you listen to podcasts on. If you're on Pandora, subscribe through Pandora. If you listen through iHeart, subscribe through iHeart. If you're on iTunes, etc., etc. But if you like the shows, it would really help us out if you go to iTunes and leave a good review, if you would. That'll definitely help us to promote the shows and get more people able to see it, or it'll come up on suggestions and stuff. It certainly helps people to find the shows if they're well reviewed. So if you don't mind and you like the podcast and you like the show, it would certainly help us out. So great stories tonight. Thank you, Five Hazel. I appreciate that. Thank you, Nellie. Scotland Wolf, thank you. Good night to you. What did I say? I said, Linda. I was talking about if people would go to iTunes and leave a good review of our podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, I don't want people to do it that don't like it. You know, I want it to be genuine. But thank you, Gemini. It's great to see you as well. It's always wonderful. Believe Australia, Paranormal and UFO Radio. That's our good friend Cade Moya down in Australia. And I've been telling people to check out your podcast, brother. Well done, always. Great shows, great job, top notch. Oh, thank you, Moog. I appreciate it. It's great to see you guys. I just thought I'd say goodnight right here in the chat rather than shutting the show down and trying to type to everybody. But, thank you, Linda. I appreciate it. Good night to you. Linda Thomas. Good night, Linda. Sweet dreams, everybody. I hope you guys have a great day tomorrow. And, of course, I'll be back to bring you another Bedtime Stories from Beyond. So I hope you'll all join me then. But everybody have a great night, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Take care and sweet dreams.